I never thought a single glance could shatter the carefully curated illusion of a perfect wedding. Yet, there I was, clutching a tray of champagne, watching my own bride sweep past me like a comet, leaving me stranded to calm her panicked little sister. It was infuriating, absurd, and heartbreakingly lonely. Samantha, my bride, had always been mesmerizing, confident, radiant, and utterly unpredictable. And today of all days she chose chaos over composure. Her younger sister Lily was wailing near the floral archway, her tiny hands trembling, mascara streaked across her cheeks. And me? I was suddenly cast in the role of babysitter, my tuxedo pinched in all the wrong ways, my perfectly rehearsed smile fading under the weight of abandonment. I sighed and bent down, trying to scoop Lily into my arms. Hey, calm down, okay? My voice sounded foreign to me, almost desperate. Lily's eyes, wide and frantic, locked onto mine as if searching for something more than just comfort. They were asking for a lifeline. She's gone, Lily cried. Mom said she couldn't come. And now my sister is gone. I swallowed. This was supposed to be a day of laughter, champagne, and vows that would last a lifetime. Instead, I was holding a toddler-sized tornado, my mind spinning. And that's when I felt Ida's presence beside me, almost soft as a whisper, yet impossible to ignore. Do you want me to help? The voice was smooth, light, yet held a steady warmth. I looked up and froze. She was stunning. Dark hair cascading over her shoulders, eyes the color of stormy skies, framed with lashes that could make anyone falter mid-sentence. Her dress, a muted lavender, hugged her in all the right places, yet nothing about her seemed calculated. She simply was. And somehow, she had appeared at my side like an answer to a prayer I hadn't dared to voice. I guess. I stammered, suddenly aware that my hands were trembling. She smiled, small but genuine, and knelt beside me. I'm Claire, she said softly, extending a hand toward Lily. You've got quite the little firecracker here. For a moment my gaze flicked from her to Lily, then back to her. There was something intoxicating in the way she spoke, an unspoken promise that the world might not be so cruel after all. Claire's presence made the chaos shrink, made the panic manageable. And perhaps in the most ridiculous twist of fate, I felt my own heart lighten. Thanks, I muttered. I'm Jordan. Claire chuckled, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face as Lily climbed into her lap without hesitation. Jordan. I like that name. Strong, dependable. Kind of like a superhero, except human. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. I don't feel like a superhero right now. More like someone holding the fort while the world falls apart. Maybe that's exactly when you become one, she said, eyes locking onto mine with a warmth that made my chest ache. There was an intimacy in that moment, fleeting yet sharp, like lightning. The next hour passed in a blur. Lily calmed, the panic subsided, and somehow impossibly I found myself sitting next to Claire beneath a string of soft, glowing lights. We talked about everything and nothing. She shared stories about her life in New York. I reluctantly confessed my nervousness about marriage, and laughter intertwined with the night air like fireflies. It was in that laughter, in the gentle brush of our hands as we passed a napkin for Lily, that I felt the stirrings of something I hadn't expected. Desire, comfort, and maybe even love. By the time Samantha returned, triumphant and glowing after tending to the rest of the wedding chaos, I felt like a different person. There was a tension, subtle but undeniable, between me and Claire. Samantha, oblivious, swept us both into her whirlwind of congratulations and selfies. And yet every glance we shared, every accidental touch of hands, sent sparks flying. Later, when the night wound down and guests began to leave, Samantha was surrounded by friends, congratulatory hugs, and effusive praise. I found myself on the outskirts, Claire by my side, neither of us wanting the night to end. You're leaving, huh? I asked, though I wasn't ready to admit how much I dreaded it. Claire shrugged, a lazy, charming smile tugging at her lips. Eventually. But not yet. Besides, someone has to make sure this little girl doesn't start a riot again. We laughed, and in that laugh was an understanding, a promise that somehow the universe had twisted events to bring us here. I wasn't sure if it was fate, luck, or sheer absurdity, but I didn't care. The warmth in Claire's eyes was enough to thaw the frost that Samantha's absence had left. The dance floor was empty now, just strings of fairy lights reflecting in the remaining champagne glasses. I watched Claire standing there, her posture casual but her presence commanding. And before I could stop myself, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers intertwined with mine, and suddenly the world felt smaller, safer, and infinitely more electric. "You're trouble, you know that?" I whispered. Claire's eyes sparkled with mischief. "And you're exactly my kind of trouble." The first kiss was hesitant, tender, and full of all the tension that had been building for hours. It wasn't about passion alone. It was about connection, solace, and an unexpected promise of something new. It was a whisper against the chaos of a day gone wrong, and yet it felt monumental. Hours later, as we sat beneath the fading glow of the wedding lights, holding hands and watching Lily doze off in a borrowed blanket, I realized that love had arrived in the most unexpected form. Samantha's absence, which had felt like abandonment, had instead opened the door to a connection I hadn't dared imagine. Claire leaned her head on my shoulder, soft and warm, and I felt the tension of the day slip away. "You're safe here," she murmured. "With me, with Lily, with us." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed it. We didn't need fireworks or grand gestures. The quiet intimacy of that moment, the shared laughter, the gentle brushing of fingers was enough. The world outside the wedding with its chaos and heartbreak could wait. Tonight we had found our own kind of magical love born from unexpected circumstances, tender, thrilling, and real. By the end of the night, Samantha's marriage had proceeded, vows exchanged and champagne spilled. But for me it was no longer the central story. My heart had found a different rhythm, a narrative of its own, and it beat in sync with Claire's. We left the venue together, the cool night air brushing against our faces. There was no rush, no dramatic declaration, just the gentle certainty that sometimes, life's most profound moments arrive unannounced. In that quiet, stolen space I learned something vital, that love doesn't always arrive as planned. Sometimes it sneaks in when you're busy holding someone else's hand, quiet yet undeniable, and changes everything. And I knew with a clarity that surprised me, that this was only the beginning. The days after the wedding felt surreal. I kept replaying that evening in my mind, the way Claire's hand had fit perfectly in mine, the tender brush of her lips against mine, the warmth that had seeped into my chest and refused to leave. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. I had been married for only a few hours, yet my heart was walking a path entirely unplanned. Claire and I exchanged numbers that night, almost reluctantly, almost in disbelief that this connection was real. And yet every text she sent carried the same warmth as her presence had that night, the same subtle flirtation, and the same comforting tone that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I could breathe freely again. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it truly hit me. Couldn't ignore her anymore. Samantha was away on her honeymoon with a radiant smile plastered across her Instagram feed. But I found myself sitting on the balcony of our apartment, phone in hand, heart hammering as I typed a simple message. "Coffee? Now." Within minutes my phone buzzed. "Give me 20 minutes. Don't get lost in your thoughts, Jordan." I laughed softly at her playful tone. Claire had a way of cutting through my anxiety, slicing right through my overthinking with humor and ease. I threw on a casual dress, grabbed my jacket, and stepped out into the crisp afternoon. When I reached the cafe, she was already there, seated at a corner table with her notebook open, scribbling something that looked suspiciously like poetry. She looked up, and her smile bright, mischievous, and so impossibly hers made my knees weaken. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hey," she replied, her eyes scanning mine like she was trying to memorize every detail. "You look distracted." I shrugged, trying to hide the storm of emotions inside. "Maybe. Life is complicated right now." "Complicated can be fun," she said, tilting her head. "Depends on how you handle it." I swallowed, unsure if I could handle this fire that she ignited in me. Every word she spoke, every glance seemed to unravel me further. I knew it was reckless, dangerous even, yet the pull between us was magnetic, undeniable. We talked for hours. Not about the wedding, not about Samantha, but about user fears, our dreams, our secret desires that rarely saw daylight. Claire had this way of speaking that made me forget the world, made me feel seen in a way I hadn't since. Ever. She made the mundane extraordinary, and the extraordinary feel effortless. By the time we left the cafe, the sun had dipped low, painting the streets in hues of orange and pink. I realized I was holding her hand without thinking, our fingers laced warm and familiar. The city hummed around us, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. Do you ever wonder what life would be like if? I started, my voice trailing off. If we weren't? She finished for me, a sly smile tugging at her lips. Yes, I admitted. If things were simpler, if I wasn't married. Her eyes softened, a flicker of sadness crossing her features before it was replaced by mischief. Jordan, life is never simple, but maybe we can make it ours. The boldness in her words, the certainty, shook me. And yet it made something inside me leap, hope, desire, a reckless kind of happiness. We began seeing each other in secret. Small moments at first. Coffee dates, late-night walks, brief touches that lingered longer than they should. Every encounter was charged with tension, the thrill of secrecy, and the depth of something new, something real. It wasn't just physical attraction, it was emotional, soul-deep, and utterly consuming. I knew I was playing with fire. Every text from Samantha, every call reminding me of my obligations, made my heart ache with guilt. But with Claire I felt alive in a way I hadn't since. I couldn't even remember. The dichotomy of my life was tearing me apart, yet I couldn't stop. One rainy evening, Claire and I found ourselves alone in her apartment, the windows fogged with condensation. She brewed tea, her movements casual but deliberate, and I watched her, mesmerized by the curve of her neck, the gentle way she poured the hot water. I don't want to hide forever, I said, my voice low, trembling slightly. Then don't, she whispered, stepping closer. Her hands cupped my face, thumbs brushing my cheeks. We'll find a way. We'll figure it out together. Her words were a lifeline. I leaned into her touch, letting the warmth of her hands chase away the cold dread that had haunted me since the wedding. The kiss that followed was desperate, passionate, and unrestrained, a silent declaration that neither of us cared about the rules, about the consequences, about anything but this moment. For weeks, we navigated this hidden world with stolen hours and whispered conversations. Every encounter brought laughter, tears, and a longing that was almost unbearable. Claire had a way of seeing me, truly seeing me, beyond the facade I wore for the world. With her, I could breathe, I could be vulnerable, I could love without reservation. But life, as always, had a way of intruding. One evening, as we sat on her couch, wrapped in blankets and half asleep, my phone buzzed. A message from Samantha. Thinking of you. Miss you. Can't wait to come home. My heart twisted painfully. I loved Samantha once, I thought I did, but this was different. Claire had become my lifeline, my solace, my forbidden happiness. And yet, guilt clawed at me relentlessly. Claire noticed immediately. She traced her fingers along my hand, eyes searching mine. Jordan, look at me. Whatever it is, we'll face it. Together. I nodded, tears welling. I can't lose you. I can't lose this. You won't, she promised. Not while I'm here. It was that night that we made an unspoken vow. No matter the chaos, no matter the obstacles, we would protect what we had found in each other. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about embracing a love that was real, tender, and fiercely ours. The following weeks were a delicate dance. We kept our relationship hidden, navigating the tricky terrain of secrecy and stolen moments. Every encounter was precious, each glance weighted with meaning. I began to realize that love, in its most profound form, wasn't about grand gestures, it was about connection, understanding, and the courage to be vulnerable. One afternoon, Claire invited me to a small art exhibit she had been curating. The gallery was intimate, sunlight streaming through tall windows, illuminating the paintings in soft, golden light. As we wandered through the exhibits, our hands brushed occasionally, sparking jolts of electricity each time. This is beautiful, I murmured, stopping in front of a painting of a stormy sea, waves crashing with wild abandon. Reminds me of us, Claire said softly, her gaze fixed on mine. Chaotic, unpredictable, but powerful. I laughed a little shakily. Are we the storm or the calm after it? She tilted her head, lips curving into a knowing smile. Maybe both. Her words struck me with the clarity of a revelation. We were navigating uncharted territory, torn between duty, expectation and desire. But in her presence, all fear and doubt seemed to dissipate, leaving only the raw, undeniable truth of our connection. That evening, as we walked along the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting in puddles from a passing rain, Claire slipped her hand into mine. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything," I replied. "Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter the obstacles, we won't let this go. That we'll fight for what we have together." I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to shout yes, to promise the world, but instead I simply nodded, letting the intensity of the moment speak for me. Days turned into weeks and our love deepened. Each secret meeting, each whispered conversation, each shared smile reinforced the bond we had forged in the chaos of a wedding day that had changed everything. I began to understand that love wasn't always about safety or certainty, it was about courage, risk, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability. Then came the day that changed everything. I had been visiting Claire at her apartment when Samantha called unexpectedly. My heart sank as I answered, trying to sound casual, even cheerful. "Hey Jordan, we're coming back early. Couldn't wait to see you." Samantha's voice was bright, oblivious to the turmoil she was about to unleash. I froze, panic rising. "Oh, okay. Sure." Claire's hand found mine under the table, a silent anchor amidst the storm. Her eyes met mine, steady and reassuring. "We'll figure it out," she whispered. And we did. That night we made a plan not to deceive, but to navigate the complicated reality of our lives with honesty where possible and courage always. We realized that the only way forward was to confront the truth, to embrace the love that had blossomed against all odds. It wasn't easy. Confrontation, heartbreak, and difficult conversations loomed on the horizon. But with Claire by my side, I felt braver, stronger, and more alive than ever before. We were no longer just two people swept up in an unexpected moment. We were partners, allies, and lovers ready to face the world together. The journey ahead promised trials and uncertainty, yet it also promised joy, laughter, and a love that was raw, authentic, and unshakable. Claire had transformed my life in ways I hadn't thought possible, and I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together hand in hand, hearts aligned and souls intertwined. As we stood on the balcony that night, watching the city glow beneath us, Claire leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're my safe place," she murmured. I pressed my lips to her hair, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. "And you're mine," I whispered. In the end, love had arrived in the most unexpected form, but it was real, unwavering, and ours. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that happiness wasn't a distant dream, it was here. In our hands, in our hearts, and in the quiet, powerful bond we had discovered together. The weeks following our decision to face the truth were tense yet liberating. Claire and I navigated every obstacle with a quiet determination, leaning on each other when the world felt heavy and uncertain. Every moment we shared was a rebellion against expectation, a claim to a love that had grown against all odds. One evening I found myself sitting on our apartment balcony, the city lights shimmering like a galaxy at our feet. Claire joined me, carrying 2 mugs of steaming tea. She handed me one, her fingers brushing mine in a way that made my heart skip. "You know," she began softly, "I never thought a wedding could lead to this." I smiled, tracing the rim of my mug. "Neither did I. And yet here we are." Her gaze softened, and she leaned her head on my shoulder. "I like here. With you." The simplicity of her words struck me. No dramatics, no declarations to the world, just the raw, unfiltered truth. And in that truth I found peace. For the first time in months, the guilt and fear that had haunted me felt manageable, because I wasn't alone. Over the next few days, we began the delicate process of informing Samantha. It wasn't easy. There were tears, awkward silences, and moments where I doubted my decision. But through it all, Claire remained steadfast, her presence a calming anchor that reminded me of why I had chosen this path. Samantha, to her credit, handled it with a surprising grace. She was hurt, yes, but not vengeful. She had always been independent and strong, and in the end, she understood that my heart had found its truth elsewhere. The divorce was amicable, and though it was bittersweet, I felt an enormous weight lift from my shoulders. With the obstacle of obligation removed, Claire and I could finally embrace our love fully. The world around us seemed brighter, lighter, as if acknowledging the authenticity of our connection. Each day brought small joys: shared breakfasts, lazy afternoons reading together, spontaneous trips to the countryside. Every moment, no matter how mundane, was infused with a sense of wonder because it was ours and ours alone. One rainy Saturday, we found ourselves walking along a quiet, tree-lined street, the scent of wet earth mingling with the aroma of coffee from nearby cafes. The city hummed softly around us, but in our little bubble, time seemed suspended. "Do you remember that night at the wedding?" Claire asked, her hand slipping into mine. I chuckled, squeezing her fingers. "How could I forget? You swooped in like a guardian angel, saving me from total humiliation." She laughed, the sound light and musical. "I was just trying to survive too, you know? Lily had me running in circles." "Yeah, but you also made me feel seen, safe, like maybe I could breathe again." Claire's eyes softened and she leaned closer. "And I feel the same, Jordan. You saved me too, in ways you don't even realize." The intimacy of that confession wrapped around me like a warm blanket. We stopped walking, letting the rain patter gently against us, and shared a long, lingering kiss. It wasn't hurried or desperate, it was steady, full of trust, affection, and the kind of quiet passion that only grows with understanding. From that moment, our relationship deepened even further. We began planning our future together, small steps at first: apartment hunting, conversations about dreams, discussions about family and friends. Each decision felt like a shared adventure, a testament to the strength of the bond we had forged in secrecy and solidified in truth. Claire introduced me to her family, who welcomed me with open arms and warm smiles. Her parents, initially wary, saw the authenticity of our connection, and soon came to admire the way we supported each other. Lily, now a frequent presence in our lives, adored us both, and the three of us formed a little world that was chaotic, lively, and perfect in its imperfections. One evening, as we were cooking dinner together, Claire paused and looked at me, her eyes shining with unspoken emotion. "Jordan, I want us to have something permanent. I want us to be more than this moment." My heart swelled and I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I want that too. More than anything." And so we began planning a life together, a commitment not bound by a wedding day or societal expectation, but by a promise to honor, cherish, and protect the love that had grown from chaos and uncertainty. Months passed, each filled with laughter, small adventures, and quiet, meaningful moments. We took trips to the mountains, visited art galleries, and spent long evenings on our balcony, talking about everything and nothing. Every day was a reminder that love, when true, is patient, resilient, and transformative. One warm summer evening, we hosted a small gathering of friends in our apartment. Fairy lights twinkled, soft music filled the room, and the aroma of home-cooked meals mingled with the laughter of our guests. Claire and I found a quiet corner, hands intertwined, watching the scene around us with contentment. "Can you believe this is our life now?" I whispered, leaning my head on her shoulder. She smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "It's better than I ever imagined, because it's ours. Completely, authentically ours." The gravity of that statement settled over me, a comforting weight that filled the spaces fear had once occupied. We had weathered storms, faced heartbreak, and dared to pursue a love that was unconventional, challenging, and utterly genuine. And in doing so, we had found not just each other, but ourselves. As the night wore on, Claire and I stepped onto the balcony, the city lights sparkling beneath us like a constellation of possibilities. She pulled me close, resting her forehead against mine. "Promise me we'll always remember this feeling. The beginning of our forever." I smiled, closing my eyes. "I promise. Forever with you, Claire." In that moment, under the soft glow of the city and the comforting warmth of her embrace, I understood the profound truth that had guided us all along. Love doesn't always arrive neatly packaged or on schedule. Sometimes it sneaks in through the cracks of ordinary life, unexpected and unstoppable, demanding to be acknowledged and cherished. Claire kissed me then, softly, deliberately, a seal on the life we were building together. It was a kiss that spoke of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and a deep, unwavering commitment. It was a promise that no matter what challenges came, we would face them together, hand in hand, heart to heart. And as we stood there, the night stretching infinitely around us, I realized that the chaotic wedding day that had once seemed like the end of everything had, in fact, been the beginning of a love that would endure. A love that was patient, tender, and bold. A love that was ours. Weeks turned into months, and our relationship continued to flourish. Claire and I moved into a new apartment, filling it with light, color, and laughter. We adopted a little dog, a scrappy terrier named Pippin, who became a constant source of joy and chaos in our lives. Every day was an adventure, whether it was grocery shopping, cooking together, or simply lounging on the couch in comfortable silence. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves swirled in golden storms outside, Claire and I sat on the balcony with mugs of coffee, watching the city wake up. She turned to me, eyes gleaming with a mixture of mischief and tenderness. "Jordan," she said softly, "do you remember the first time we met? At that ridiculous wedding." I laughed, nodding. How could I forget? You were like an angel crashing into my life. She smiled, a hint of teasing in her expression. And now look at us. From chaos to this. I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers. From chaos to everything I could have ever hoped for. The seasons changed, and with each one our love grew deeper. We celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and small milestones with a sense of wonder and gratitude. We laughed until our sides hurt, comforted each other through tears, and found joy in the ordinary moments that often go unnoticed. And then one spring evening, under a sky painted with shades of orange and pink, Claire turned to me with a look I will never forget. "Jordan," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes, a mixture of joy and disbelief. "Yes," I whispered, barely able to speak through the lump in my throat. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." We embraced, the world around us fading away, leaving only the two of us and the love that had blossomed against all odds. In that embrace, I understood that every moment of pain, every twist of fate, every unexpected encounter had led us here to a love that was fearless, tender, and enduring. Our wedding a year later was intimate and perfect. Surrounded by close friends, family, and Lily, who had become our little family's heart, we exchanged vows that were entirely our own. No pomp, no expectation, just love, truth, and a promise to face the world together. Claire's hand in mine, her eyes shining with tears and laughter, I felt the full weight of our journey. From the chaos of a wedding day gone wrong to the quiet, steady rhythm of a life built together, we had found something extraordinary. A love that was real, unyielding, and ours. As we danced under the soft glow of fairy lights, Lily twirling nearby, I realized that happiness wasn't a fleeting moment or a distant dream. It was here in our hands, in our hearts, and in the quiet, powerful connection that had survived every storm. And in that moment, I knew no matter what the future held, we would face it together, with courage, laughter, and a love that would endure forever. Claire pressed her forehead to mine, whispering, "Forever, Jordan." I smiled, feeling a warmth that would never fade. Forever, Claire. And with that promise, we stepped into our new life, hand in hand, hearts intertwined, ready to embrace every challenge, every joy, and every ordinary, extraordinary moment together. We had found love in the most unexpected place, and in doing so, we had found ourselves and a happiness that was real, radiant, and eternal. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.